Okay, now we're going to be talking about social loafing. Basically, with social facilitation, there's been some research that shows that getting together into groups or being in the presence of others can actually improve your performance. Social loafing shows that there are under certain conditions your performance will decrease when you work as a group versus working individually. So let's talk about where that began, starting with the Ringelmann effect. Okay? When people are working on simple group tasks, the actual productivity is equal to, if you think about Steiner's law of productivity, the actual productivity is equal to the potential productivity less process loss. So in other words, each individual has their potential to what they could do, to their maximum speed, maximum strength, whatever it is that the task involves. If you add up all of those individual potentials, that would be the potential productivity. The actual productivity, though, when the group gets together, is what did the group accomplish together? How fast did they go? How much did they lift, or whatever it happened to be? And you divide it up among the group members. Essentially, then you're seeing that there may be a difference between the added up potential productivity with the actual productivity. And the difference there is the process loss. What happens that getting together into a group led to a decreased performance? So that process loss is the decreased performance for whatever reason. Start with the Ringelmann effect. Basically, he did some research where he had men pulling on a rope, and they pulled it on it as hard as they could, and they had them pull it on individually, and then they had to pull the rope together as a group. And he measured how much force was used to pull the rope. Now, consider this. If you have one person pull the rope versus 5 people pulling the rope, well, assuming, again, 5 of the same strength, you're going to find that the 5 people pulling is going to pull more than the one person. However, if you added up the individual pulling strength of each of those 5 individuals, it would be greater than the pulling strength of the group put together. And that's basically what he discovered. As the group size increased, basically each person's individual contribution became less. Now, even though the individual contribution is less, it still means that the group is more productive than one individual, but it's less productive than each individual added together. So a simple additive task, again, like in this picture here, but they're carrying a boat or on a tug of war. It's a simple task and what they call it an additive task, meaning that each individual's contribution is simply added to the other. Nobody's doing anything different from anybody else. You're just adding up their contributions. Okay? And there are 2 types of process losses that come from this. One is a coordination loss, which comes from essentially people not using their energies in the most efficient way possible. They're trying, but maybe they're working against each other in certain ways. For example, let's say we've got a tug of war, and you have a group of 5 strong men and women against another 5 strong men and women on the other side, and they're pulling on the rope, pulling on each other, competing. See who can pull the other group into the middle. Okay? Well, each person may be trying as hard as they can, but what if Joe is pulling back and to the left, while Mary is pulling back and to the right. In that case, they're partially working against each other in terms of pulling. They should both be pulling straight back. But you see what I'm saying? Is that that's an example of a coordination loss. They are not being lazy, they're pulling as hard as they can, but they may be working against each other, and this represents a lack of coordination. So in a group project, coordination losses occur when the individuals in the group may be not working together in the most efficient way possible. Things are people are getting in the way of each other, for example. If people are getting in the way of each other, there's coordination loss. And another unfortunate type of process loss is called social loafing, and this represents motivation loss. If somebody is not quite as energized and motivated as the others, they may kind of just go along with the crowd without exerting any extra effort. So when you are in a group on a simple task like carrying the boat, you can kind of get away with it. And in fact, you can think about a tug of war. You can imagine somebody pulling on the rope and more or less just even pretending they're pulling on the rope. They're purposely not pulling as hard as they can. Maybe they don't want to hurt their hands. Maybe they don't want to get a hernia. So they're just kind of giving the impression that they're pulling. Maybe they're grimacing as if they're really straining, but maybe they're not straining at all. And if you've got a bunch of other strong teammates on your side, you can get away with it. No one will know. No one will know. And that indicates social loafing. Latani et al. Did research to kind of examine these two types of losses, the two types of productivity losses here. So you have the motivation loss, which would be the social loafing, and the coordination loss, which comes from the groups not working efficiently. With the coordination loss reflects the loss when you have a group of people working together or doing the same task together, and seeing how it differs from each individual potential. The motivation loss comes when they're actually pretending that they have a group. So people are blindfolded and they have headphones on, so they don't know that they're really by themselves. They just think they're in a group, and that represents the motivation loss. It has nothing to do with the coordination among group members, because there really are no other group members. But any decrease in performance, in output, can be described as motivation loss. So, anybody who has ever been in working with a group, working with others, I've recognized the idea that some people may not be pulling their weight. They may be kind of just going along with the crowd and not really contributing as much as they could. So, how do we increase social motivation? You want to increase the motivation so people will be motivated to put in their best effort and not kind of just loaf. One way to do this is to increase identifiability. If you have every member of the group identified in terms of how much are they contributing, then you would know who is the loafer and who isn't. So if each individual group member's contributions are measurable and identifiable, then you could reduce motivation loss, because people would be embarrassed if their own personal contributions are shown to be minimal. The way social loafing works best is when it is done in secret, when nobody can see that you're doing it directly. Another way in which you can do this is to try to make the group size as small as possible. 6 plus or minus 2 as a good number for a group activity. In your, so basically, and that's also what I try to do in the group dynamics classes, to make the groups small, not to have like huge groups here. And this way, everybody knows each other, everybody sees each other. You know, in a small group, you're less likely to kind of slip by unnoticed as a loafer. So in the small group situations, you're not going to get lost in the crowd because there really is no crowd. You want to set goals in group activity. Make them clear and specific. If everybody knows what they need to do and how they need to get there, then people are going to be more motivated to do what they need to do. If the guidelines set for the assignment are very general, very vague, then the loafing is going to occur because people are going to say, well, I don't really know what to do. I'm just going to kind of float around and see what everybody else does, and I'll just go along with that. But if you know what needs to be done, you know what you need to do to contribute, you're going to go ahead and do that and not going to be motivated to just loaf around. You also, a good way to minimize social loafing is to create in your assignment a lot of interdependence. Make sure that everybody in the group is dependent upon everybody else. If Joe is a member of the group and Joe needs to do a certain part of the project and the rest of the group members can't continue unless Joe gets his act together, well, Joe is going to be less likely to engage in social loafing because he's going to piss off everybody else. He's going to screw up the whole group by not doing what he's supposed to do. So, if everybody knows that they are needed, that there's interdependence, then they're going to be highly engaged with the activity and they're going to not be likely to loaf. Finally, a thing that you'd want to do is you'd want to be able to have people kind of be proud of the group and identify with the group. This goes back to social identity theory, where you can form a connection where you take on the identity. You see yourself as not just Joe, but as Joe, the member of this group. So you see yourself as a member of the group. You identify with the group. You want the group to be successful, and therefore you're going to do your part and you're going to work hard at it rather than engage in social loafing. Social compensation is also a way in which you can reduce social loafing. Basically, if you are a group member who is highly committed and engaged with the task, you really want to succeed, and you see that some of the other members of your group may not be as talented as you, may not be able to work as efficiently as you, well, what you're going to do is you're going to up your effort to compensate for the deficiencies of your fellow group members. So you're going to work hard to compensate for it. And so even if you have some weaker group members, people who are the rest of the group, if they consider the task to be very important, will work extra hard to compensate for it. If you think about circumstances where you're in a group and you know that some people in the group are, maybe they're not just, maybe they're not very talented, but maybe they're also lazy, maybe you feel that they're trying to free ride, trying to go along, just loaf along with everybody else. You might feel like, well, what's the point of me working hard now if all these other jerks are not going to work hard? And that's called the sucker effect, where you don't want to appear to be the sucker, the jerk who has to do all the work while everybody else, gets is lazy and takes all the credit. So, your motivation to not be the sucker would actually make you work less hard and kind of loaf along like everybody else. But bottom line is, if you feel that the goal is important, then you'd be more willing to compensate for the deficiencies, even if the deficiencies are due to laziness and not just, lack of ability. So again, this is why it's important to have a highly engaging task for the group to be doing, so just to minimize the social loafing in the first place. Okay, the collective effort model does a pretty good job of summarizing the causes of social loafing. Basically, let's take a look at this chart over here. You're starting off with expectations. Individuals in a group have expectations about whether or not they're going to reach the goal. If your expectations are that the goal was reached, then you are going to perform. Your performance is going to be high. If, however, your expectation is, well, we're never going to reach the goal anyway, then your performance is going to be low. So your expectations guide your performance. Okay. When you engage in the performance of your task, you are going to achieve rewards. Okay. Those rewards, you may value those rewards, depending on how much you value those rewards, is going to lead to your motivation. So if you value those rewards highly, then then your motivation is going to be increased. If your value of those rewards is pretty low, then your motivation is going to be low. And your motivation also could then go back and guide your expectations again in this way. Now take a look at some of the factors that might come into play here. What happens if you're in a group and that even if you work hard, other group members do not? Well, then that's going to screw up your expectations for success, and thus you may feel that you may decide not to work so hard. If you've got to share your rewards with others versus the personal rewards that you get yourself, maybe you get a personal reward of not working as hard. That's a personal, if you think about it that way. But what if the personal rewards are more valued than the group rewards? Then you're not going to devote much energy to the group. But if the group rewards are more valuable to you than the personal rewards, then you are going to work hard in the group. So if you feel as if you have to share the reward with others, you don't want to share. If the group rewards are not as valued as the personal rewards, then that's going to result in the loss of motivation. So this pretty much sums up the social loafing paradigm here. But realize again, you guys are going to be working in group assignments for this very short semester. So you should try to not be the social loafer and try to find ways to decrease the social loafing in your group to make everybody engaged, make everybody motivated to reach the goal, and hopefully you'll all be able to reach the goal and do very well.